Chapter 21. As the cool night sky settles over Midland, the citizens are returning home from work to prepare for the evening festivities. Every night in the city is a celebration of life. Living in this new world is not for the faint of heart. Gloom and death are around every corner, stalking their prey like an ethereal panther. So all citizens celebrate. They celebrate life and surviving another day. The majority of the inhabitants migrate to the center of the city. The day merchants have closed shop and made way for the evening traders. Lights attached to a pole in the center of the bazaar stretch to all the surrounding buildings, creating a tent of reds, greens, blues, and yellows over the shops and town-goers. Adults walk between the shops sipping wine and beer, while the children laugh and scream with sparklers, pretending to vanquish the evil lurking right outside the city walls. The mouth of madness is particularly packed with Midlanders this evening, with great hopes of listening to the main attraction. There's only standing room in the bar, with many regulars forced to stand outside drinking and mingling with like-minded patrons. Frothy mugs clash against glasses, with heavy laughter and cheers enveloping the air around the bar. Prostitutes are working overtime due to the scavengers returning in droves to witness the show only moments away. Word is the scavengers were able to acquire quite a few more materials after the fall of Sandman's tower. Some whisper of ill tidings and dread for the conjurer's potential wrath. Thanks to alcohol and the warmth of a good whore, the dark theories take a back seat to the current festivities. Their minds and senses drift to the sweet pleasures life offers. So no one notices the hunter, clad in his faded leather jacket and trusty sidearms, slip into the crowded bar. The 1911 and hand cannon are loaded and restless, itching for an opportunity to wake and send the demons back to the ethereal plane. Rod's target is seated in the far back of the bar, in a booth alone, sipping his favorite cocktail. The hunter slides through the drunk and enamored patrons on his way to the booth. He makes no effort to stay concealed from his target. Rod knows that the hooded figure will be expecting him. The man's reach through the city is far and deep, eyes always watching and ears always listening. The hunter makes no salutations when he reaches the table. He sits across from the figure, staring coldly into the black abyss that the cloth hood veils. The being holds his decorative wine glass in his right hand, while sliding his left index finger around the glass. "I've been expecting you." Rod remains silent as the voice pleasantly speaks. The figure moves his left hand to the hood and reveals a pale face with white hair neatly pulled back. The fine hair has begun to recede, giving the man a rather wide forehead. He playfully looks at the hunter with soulless gray eyes, smiling ever so gently to expose his long canine teeth. He takes a sip from his thick crimson liquid before speaking again. "Is every meeting going to start this way? Staring me down with brooding disgust, Rod continues his silent gaze upon the vampire. The undead being rubs his large nose, then crosses his arms, waiting for his dinner guest to reply. The world goes silent around the men. To them, nothing else matters but this very instant. Not an act of intimidation by Rod, but out of pure hatred for the vampire. Their past is littered with countless acts of betrayal, leaving them both outsiders in the realm to the northeast. Rod musters all his fortitude and strength of will to keep from ripping the beast's black heart from his chest and squeezing it into a paste. The vampire knows this, and only acts playful for a second. "So, I take it you have questions that need answering." Rod quells his rage long enough to reply to the undead creature. I have a friend that went missing several days ago. It seems men in the city, including Slade, have succumbed to something. And knowing you, Flindrick, you already have the answers I need." "But of course," the stylish vampire replies, taking another sip of his beverage. "But where's the fun in just giving you the answer? Life is a game. Learn to have a little fun." Flindrick's eyes follow Rod's gaze to the dark red liquid. "Relax, it's vermin blood. I haven't had the sweet nectar of human plasma in almost 20 years. I kept my end of the bargain. Of course, I have to mix vodka with it. Helps kill the taste of rat." "So what do you know about the men?" Plenty, I assure you. But first I have some terms for you." Rod keeps his hand close to Damon Malum, hoping the confrontation doesn't take a turn for the worst. As much as the hunter wants to rid the world of this vampire scum, there are too many people, and no doubt Flindrick's half-breeds are scattered throughout. Rod expected the Exiled One's demands. It's been the same for the past 20 years. "I need to taste the blood of human one more time. That warm nectar is calling to me every second." The self-assured demeanor washes away from the creature as he succumbs to the needs of an addict. "Give me this one more time and I'll be good for another 20 years. Hell, at this rate, 30 years. "No." The vampire snarls in agitation at the sound of the word like hot silver pouring into his ears, boiling his brain from the inside. "Damn it, Rod! You can't do this to me!" The hunter eases Damon Malum from its slumber, pulling the hammer back, pointing it at the vampire's crotch. "You need to calm that temper down. You don't make the demands here, I do. You owe a debt to me, not the other way around. Now, give me the information I asked for, or I'll fire a .50 caliber slug right through your crotch and out your ass, turning your dick into a paste. The only way you'll be able to fuck is shoving a fresh cucumber up the bloody hole. Your choice, of course," Rod demands with a callous smile. "Huh! Now you're starting to have some fun," Flindrick retorts, reverting back to his smug manner, taking another sip of his rat blood and vodka cocktail. "Tanner?" "Excuse me?" Rod questions. "The man you're looking for is Tanner. Lives on the outskirts of the lower district. He and his wife are castless, yet he's spent quite a bit of silver coins as of late." "Is that it?" "You think I'm going to make this easy for you? Please," Flindrick responds with a self-satisfied chuckle. "You and Kiara are just alike, with that self-righteous attitude." Before the vampire can finish the sentence, Rod pulls the hand cannon over the table and points it at Flindrick's face. The vampire sits motionless, watching the darkness crawl over Rod's aura, ready to end his soulless life. "You don't get to say her name. You lost that right, you fucking soulless exile. If I ever see your lips even begin to form her name, I'll rip out your black heart and wipe you from this world. Do we understand one another?" "Of course. Whatever you say, Hunter. Besides, I'm not the only one to blame for her death. Next time you point that barrel, you point it at yourself." Flindrick's right, and Rod knows it. The deepening evil regresses back into the depths of Rod's soul as he holsters Damon Malum. "I made a choice, and every day I have to live with it," Rod continues. "However, your choice was to not choose and just sit idly by." Rod realizes where this conversation is heading. They've had it many times. Flindrick's light, narrow eyebrows dart to the bridge of his nose while biting his bottom lip in anger. The vampire rebuts with the same old monologue about choice and consequence, how he and his fellow angels were cast out of heaven by Lucifer's choice. Every creature in the know is fully aware of the age-old story known as the treason of the Morning Star. The vampire is fully animated as he speaks of the Morning Star's betrayal of the father, spitting on the ground after speaking the betrayer's name. Time is relative. While it marches on for some, it zips by for others. What was merely a blink of an eye for humans was an eternity for angels. The war took many souls. Once it finally came to an end, Lucifer and his rebels were cast from heaven and sent to Regnum Inferos in the ancient tongue, an isolated realm connecting Regnum Dei, the realm of God, and Regnum Hominum, the realm of humanity. It is said the great archangel Michael personally banished Lucifer to the realm. It is whispered that tears ran from his face as he cast his friend through the eternal abyss. As for the angels that sat by watching the conflict, waiting to see who would become the victor, they were stripped of their souls and exiled from heaven, plummeting to earth like a massive meteorite. The exiled ones were different than the banished ones. Lucifer and the other rebels retained their tainted soul. Even though malice overshadowed their souls, they stood by their convictions and made a choice for change. Not be the change everyone hoped for, but change nonetheless. The idol angels were a symbol of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of consequence, fear of something greater than themselves. And by welcoming this fear, they've forsaken their godly gift, a soul, thus granting them the irony of a life in fear. All creatures have a soul. It is this pure energy of the universe that binds us all together. It grants each creature eternal life in one form or another, giving us the ability to merge with other energies to form something new. Whether for good or ill, the outcome is always eternal, except for vampires. Their only link to the universe is their frail, pale body. Once that is destroyed, by extinguishing the heart, they cease to exist. The original vampires, through the drinking of blood, learned to extract another living creature's essence, granting them unexpectedly long life and unnatural power, and consequently allowing them to escape that ever-looming fear of death, of no longer existing. Rod's mind drifts to the thought of Kiara, the vampire that helped him back from the emptiness within himself. Only through her was he able to push the Dark One's treacherous whispers away from his mind and recover some semblance of humanity. Their affair was lustful and adventurous. It began as a wild fling, but something happened that neither of them expected. A love developed between them. But, like all things in Rod's life, purity never lasts. As quickly as the lovers intertwined themselves, it was taken away. One dark and bloody night that stands out above all others. He can remember every detail of Kiara's pastel, beautiful face, her deep green eyes welling up in tears as Rod gently moved her black hair from her face. The deafening whisper of her last words will forever be branded in his heart. A sullen reminder of the happiness that he held for a brief moment. The love that slipped through his fingers once more as his beloved melted to ash, fading from his embrace. As she faded, the Dark One took the opportunity to sink its vile mandibles deep in Rod again. The Lord of Under-Earth lost many men that night. More than 100 of his finest vampire soldiers, pure and half-breed alike, were erased from this plane. The soothing melody of the concert being held in the tavern tiptoes its way over to Rod, cracking his hardened armor for a second. Her soft words ease into his subconscious, causing the hunter to turn and watch. He hangs onto every lyric from her forgiving lips. He can't help but reason that those words are directed at him. He looks around at the other patrons who are also lost in her song. No doubt having the same feelings I am. Flindrick suspends his monologue of truth, as he loves to call it, seeing Rod transfixed on the concert. I see you never listened to Moraine Algal before. It is said she is the only mortal to walk through the desert damnum unscathed. Her voice can soothe even the most wretched hearts. The hunter shakes free from his tormented memories, turning back to the vampire for the last inquiry. So is that all the information you're going to give? Tick-tock, tick-tock. The old coot is looking to dip his cock. Rod moans at the childish and moronic rhyme. He exits the booth without any farewell and heads for the tavern exit. The vampire remains seated, sipping on his glass of blood. What a waste of a dark gift on such a simpleton, Flindrick muses quietly to himself. As he leaves the tavern, two lines strike a deep chord within Rod from the songstress in the bar. Accepting yourself as someone you do not desire, Rod reciting to himself. He's dumbfounded why those words strike hard against him. The feeling of emptiness sneaks to the forefront of his mind. There's something missing within himself, and no matter how hard he tries, Rod can't seem to grasp it. He continues to the exit. The hunter pushes the thoughts from his mind as he pushes through the tavern doors. He descends the stairs and is met by Gabriel's stoic expression towering over a group of citizens. The Goliath of a man hands Rod a small earpiece, which he places in his right ear. Rod presses the button and speaks to Elena on the other end. It's Rod. Do you hear me? Loud and clear, bub. The two hunters continue to the bazaar square and head toward the right, while discussing the conversation with Flindrick. So, all I got from Flindrick was a name. Tanner. Apparently he lives in the outskirts near the Castless region. Never heard of him. Give me a sec. Elena goes quiet while surveying through the cameras she covertly installed around Midland. Okay, so your typical scenario, really. Most of the Castless are huddled around two bonfires. He mentioned a rhyme. Tick-tock, tick-tock, the old coot is looking to dip his cock. Gabriel chimes in. Easy, he's probably heading to Pussy Palace or already there. Elena, anyone moving from the Castless zone to the whorehouse? Rod asks. Let me see. Looks like 3 men. If you take the next alleyway heading south, you'll be at their flank. Got it. Come on, Gabe. Rod and Gabriel quicken their pace, but not into a full sprint. They don't want to draw too much attention to themselves. The 2 men weave through several packs of citizens heading through the bazaar. Guards are patrolling the streets and lighting street lamps as they go. The hunters see the building passageway and vanish into its shadow. The alley is about 50 yards in length, with various trash and debris lining where the street and building connect. At one point, Gabriel pushes Rod out of the way from an impending bath. Someone from the 3rd story decided to use their window as a toilet. The tang of ammonia lingers heavy for the remaining walk through the soggy alley. Ambient sounds of the city are interrupted by the voice of Elena through each man's earpiece. Okay, stop right there, orders the young hunter, sitting cozily in her computer chair at home, sipping a glass of tea. They stop and lean close to a chest-high garbage bin, hugging the wall as footsteps approach the alleyway. 3 men pass, each dressed in ratty clothing. The man in the middle has short dark hair with a white cotton shirt and stained dirt pants. The figure on his left is dark-skinned. bald with a goatee. He's wearing a black vest over a gray shirt with dark denim pants. The third individual has long, nappy brown hair with a brown leather jacket and dark green pants. The three snicker and whisper to one another as they pass the hunters, walking toward their destination at the end of the street. "Okay, you're clear," Elena says to the hunters. Rod and Gabriel move out of the alley and follow their prey at a good distance. With each step closer to their purpose, the music from the club becomes quite apparent. The deep bass from the techno-style music beats almost in rhythm with each man's own heartbeat. Several gaggles of teens jumble in groups outside the club. "Do you have eyes around the perimeter?" Rod asks. "Only the entrance right now," Elena answers. "Gabe, continue around the corner and see if there's an exit. We need to keep them contained inside." Gabriel acknowledges with a slight nod, moves past the teenage crowd, and disappears around the corner. Rod makes for the stairs and enters the club. The sound is ear-splitting when the hunter enters the purple-lit nightclub. It's an open area with a bar in the middle. Many round dance tables litter throughout the club, with quite a few balconies overhead. Every seat is taken at each dance table with a nude man or woman, with various colors painted across their body, moving seductively to the music. "No sign of them," Rod's speaking into the earpiece as he moves through the ocean of sweaty, intoxicated bodies. As he advances to the bar, Rod spots several men and women performing all kinds of sexual acts on one another around the nightclub. Rod reaches the bar and asks for a shot of dandelion wine. The overly sexualized male bartender looks at him with a peculiar face, then pours the liquor. He's surprised that anyone would order such a disgusting drink. "Are you drinking on the job?" Elena with a scolding tone. "Hey, I'm fitting in. Wait, how the hell do you know?" "Did I forget to mention I hooked up a security system for the owner? Well, I just so happened to give myself a backdoor into the system." "Nice," Gabriel replies. "Hey, don't praise her. She lied to us." "No, I didn't. I just forgot. Until now." "Well, make yourself useful. Do you see the men at all?" Rod asks before slamming the drink back. The tinker goes silent for a moment as she scours through the CCTV feeds around the dance club. Rod finishes his drink and moves to the other end of the club. A mass of people is forming around the largest stage. A voice comes over the intercom. "Hello, you sexy fuckers! Pry yourself off that sweet tail and get ready for the main attraction!" The patrons erupt with cheers, clapping as they move closer to the stage. Rod follows to investigate. "You got eyes on the stage?" "Yeah, give me a second," Elena says. The hunter slips through the sweaty admirers on his way to the stage. He can only go so far before he's blocked by a wall of people. He goes to the right, near a wall with several chairs, and steps on one for a better view of the stage. The DJ's voice blares out of the speakers once more. "I give you Lorana and her seductive spider dance." The crowd screams and hollers as the lights dim. A set of blue and red spotlights splash across the stage as a hypnotic beat rumbles out of the speakers. Rod watches as the crowd sways to the rhythm of the music. A small hole opens up in the middle of the stage, and a metallic pole protrudes out, extending to the ceiling. A leg glides out from behind the curtain, and the crowd erupts with even louder cheers. The rest of the woman slides out in spellbinding rhythm. She is nude, with only her long green hair covering her firm breasts. The enchantress slinks over to the pole with uncanny flexibility. The mob moans in orgasmic delight at the show. Rod is amazed by the performance on stage. The woman moves in ways he's never seen before. Jumping to the pole and swinging around with such grace and strength is a sight to behold. Like the crowd, Rod is becoming spellbound with the dance. He can't seem to keep his eyes off the limber seductress. It takes several attempts, but Elena is able to draw him back from the erotic spell. "Hey, lover boy, snap out of it." "Rod, you there?" Elena asks, raising her voice. The enthralled hunter snaps out of the performance. Rod replies, "Thanks, I don't know what came over me." "I think you still have some drool on your chin," Elena replies with an abrasive tone. "Get your head back in the game. I got eyes on the targets. They're to the right of the stage behind the curtain." Rod sees the bouncer, who also succumbed to the vixen's sultry dance, blocking the door to the back. He steps down from the chair to make a break to the bouncer. Elena disrupts his stride. "Wait, hold on. I think the woman is signaling to Tanner." Rod stops and waits. He hears the tinker breathing and mumbling to herself. She changes to another camera for a better angle. She is able to zoom in to see the subtle communication between the two. Tanner points to someone in the crowd. Lorana turns to the spellbound mob, finds the target, and gives a subtle gesture back to Tanner. Like a snake, the dancer slithers alluringly over to the left of the stage. "I think they are targeting someone in the crowd. Hold your position. Let's see how this plays out." Rod and Gabriel reply in agreement and wait for Elena's order. The young tinker stares at the monitor closely as the camera follows Lorana's path across the stage. She glides off the platform and onto a nearby table, where 3 men are transfixed on the naked seductress. Lorana inches over to the blonde-haired man, going in for a kiss. "Okay, I think they have their target. She's kissing a blonde guy. Rod, he's on the other side of the stage. Start moving in." "Got it," Rod responds. He needles his way through the crowd, weaving this way and that on his way to Lorana. He glances over his shoulder, spotting 2 men with Tanner. The trio walks past the bouncer, heading in Rod's direction. Rod slows down to blend in with a segmented group of onlookers, allowing Tanner and the other 2 to pass. The hunter glances up in time to see 3 more men heading down a spiral staircase. The man in front keeps a cold stare on Lorana. "Try and get backstage. I got eyes on the target. If they leave the club, Gabe, trail them. I bet we can probably figure out where their hideout is," Elena says. "Got it," Gabriel replies. "I take it you want me to question the girl after the performance?" Rod questioning the young tinker as he backtracks to the guarded doorway. "You betcha." Rod stays close to the crowd, keeping his attention on Lorana. He reaches the bouncer. Unfortunately, he is no longer starstruck by the stripper. The stout man crosses his arms over his chest, keeping a stern eye on his surroundings. He's a massive individual, but by no means as intimidating as Gabriel. Rod looks over to Tanner's target. The 6 men have seized the intoxicated patron, escorting him past the staircase through a set of double doors. "Gabe, they're on the move. 6 men total, with the blonde being their target. He's average height with a slim frame, tattered red shirt with dark pants." "Got it." "I lost them once they went through the doors. Let me see if I have a camera on the street. Stand by," Elena interjects. Rod looks to the muscle-arm blockade. Without warning, the lights begin to pulsate on and off. The beat from the speakers intensifies, signaling the grand finale of the performer's spider dance. The crowd roars in excitement as they jump up and down to the rhythm of the bass. Rod uses the opportunity and advances. When the lights go out again, he unleashes a fierce left jab to the bouncer's stomach. His fist stops as it crashes into the concrete abs. He looks up at the bouncer, who is grinning at the hunter. "Oh, shit," Rod grimaces. The bouncer picks Rod up and slings him like a rag doll against the wall. The bouncer, without hesitation, charges in for several fast jabs and a hook. Rod dodges the barrage, then slides inside the doorway as the muscular guardian knocks a chunk out of the drywall. Rod backpedals quickly backstage to avoid the crowd's gaze. They are all too enamored to notice anyway. The ferocious guard lunges at Rod with 2 quick hooks. The hunter dodges with a blow to his stomach, then leaps onto the man's back as he passes. He wraps his arms around the bouncer's thick neck and starts squeezing in hopes to subdue him. Instinctively, the bouncer takes a strong leap backward into the wall. All air escapes from Rod's lungs as he's pancaked between the wall and muscles. His grip never wavers as the strong man walks forward again, only to leap backward once more. The hunter's back pops down his spine in rapid succession. Sharp pangs shoot throughout his nervous system, but his grip holds strong. With each lunge, the bouncer slows in ferocity as Rod's death grip begins to block the air from entering the man's lungs. A voice whispers into Rod's ear as he's smashed into the wall for the 5th time. "Where are you? Lorana just finished and is about to walk off stage." "I'm a little," Rod says as the bouncer lunges into the wall again. "Busy." The muscle man's eyesight blurs as he takes his last remaining breaths of oxygen. He stumbles to his knees, struggling for another gulp of air. Dropping to his hands, he fights for one last breath to no avail before he collapses, with Rod still hugging him tightly. The man's body goes limp. Rod struggles, panting, to his feet, then popping his spine back into place. He looks down at the sleeping mass and gives a little kick. "Yeah, that's what you get." "What the hell is going on? I have no visual of Lorana or Tanner. They're somewhere in the back," Elena stresses. "I'm on it. I've got held up." The lights from the club come back up, and the crowd disperses throughout the warehouse, each patron continuing their deviant act of pleasure and booze. Rod sneaks through the blackness of the backstage. He sneaks between tables, chairs, and other various pieces of furniture. Toward the back corner, he spots light venting out of a doorway. He creeps closer. Rod spots 2 shadows rip across the light source, followed by 2 distinct voices, one male and the other female. The hunter comes to a large wooden desk with several chairs stacked on top of it. He crouches next to the furniture and listens to the shadows conversing. The shadow on the left mimics the actions of the female voice. The voices are still too low for Rod to distinguish. A low, deep voice comes through Rod's earpiece. "No one with blonde hair exited the club." "I got nothing either," Elena replies to Gabriel. "All right, I'm going to make a play on Lorana and Tanner," Rod whispers. He creeps around his hiding spot and goes straight for the shadows. The voices are coming in clearer with each step. Tanner's tone has a familiar rasp to it. The hairs stand on the back of Rod's neck as he comes closer to the doorway. His mind disregards the conversation as he advances to the shadows while unsheathing his sword. Rod's back tightens and arches like a coiled snake about to strike as he reaches the doorway. He rounds the corner and peeps. Lorana is rubbing the sweat from her naked body with a towel. Tanner is standing in front of her with his back facing Rod. Tanner notices Lorana's eyes widen and her mouth drop at the sight of the invading hunter. Before he can react, Rod grabs Tanner by the collar, then yanks him to the ground. He straddles Tanner and points the tip of his blade to his neck. Rod peers into Tanner's blue, soulless eyes, devoid of all emotion. The hunter wastes few words and gets straight to the point with the interrogation. "Where are you taking the men?" Tanner lays there motionless, staring into Rod's deep blue eyes. Rod deepens his tone and applies pressure to the man's neck. "Answer me." Tanner shows no fear. His face is a blank slate. His pale skin looks as though it could slide off his body at a moment's notice. His look and demeanor are that of a hollow shell of a man, as if the soul left this vessel years ago. Only air and organs fill the void. Without warning, the bright blue eyes show a tinge of life as Tanner makes clear eye contact with the hunter. Tanner clears his throat, then speaks with that familiar, raspy tone. "So you have come for him. The moment he connected to me, I knew that you would come. Bring them all with you. I'll be waiting." As Tanner finishes speaking, he moves his head forward. Rod's blade punctures the pale skin as the lifeless man moves his head to cut his own throat. Rod is stunned by the action and can't withdraw the blade in time. Red erupts out of the gash and pools onto the floor. Tanner makes a gurgling noise as blood spurts out of his lips. Rod stands up as Tanner's body goes still. He turns to Lorana, who is still standing there in complete terror. He walks over to the woman, sliding his crimson-tipped blade to her neck. "Your turn to explain," Lorana cries as she begs for her life. She recounts being propositioned by Tanner several months ago. She recently came by train from Orgrimdir. She had not yet decided on a profession. Her dream was to become an herbalist. Due to the lack of simple education and training, she failed apprenticeship. Her only other recourse was becoming a prostitute. And that's when Tanner came and made a deal with her.
"By applying a balm on my lips, I'm able to woo any man. They bend over backward, granting me my every wish."
"So what was the price for this balm from Tanner?" Rod asks, pulling the sword away from Lorana.
"Tanner and his friend wanted me to seduce certain men."
Lorana pauses in guilt-ridden reflection.
"I never asked why. I guess not knowing made each day a little more tolerable."
Tears start to well up again in her eyes.
"God, I wish I never came to this city."
"Where's the balm?" Rod inquires, allowing the woman to get dressed. She dives into her black bag and pulls out a small case.
"Here, take it. I'm done. I have enough money to return to Orgrimdir and forget all about this nightmare."
She grabs the rest of her things and heads down the lit hallway. Rod unscrews the lid and peers into the tin. "You guys get all that?" Rod to Elena and Gabriel. "Yeah," Gabriel responding ominously. "Do you think it is her?"
"If it is, I get another chance at blowing a fucking hole through her head," Elena responds with a cross tone.
Rod dips his finger into the tin and touches the purplish goop. He smells the sludge that is stuck to his finger. Fruity. "So, are we going to let her walk?" Gabriel asks.
"No, I'll let Kendrick know. I'm sure he'll want to perform his own interrogation. He's anal like that,"
Elena answers. "Looks like the 6 have left the nightclub and are on the move." Gabriel. "Gabe, stay back and follow. I'll catch up," Rod says, wiping the goop from his finger. He screws the lid back on. Shoving the tin into the breast pocket of his leather jacket, Rod heads back the way he came. He passes through the lightless backstage, then the darkly dreaming bouncer, and back into the nightclub. No one noticed the hunter. Everyone is too deep in their own affairs to care. He exits the club from the entrance and asks for Gabriel's location. "They're heading toward the castless part of town," the light-footed behemoth calmly replies. No reason for subterfuge, so Rod decides to take the main street. It dead ends at an overlook of a castless section of town. The area looks like an old shantytown, with many wooden huts built from the barest of resources. Several bonfires are lit with groups of people huddled around each. The aroma of sweat and garbage is quite thick. Rod runs to the left of the overlook, climbing down into a patch of soupy mud. At least that's what he's telling himself it is. He spends little time in the district. He darts through a narrow alley between 2 ramshackle buildings. He passes a cluster of castless, huddled around a bonfire. He says nothing and continues hot on Gabriel's heels. He did happen to see several skewered sewer rats on a makeshift rotary arm. He comes up to another group. It's 5 men resting against a wooden post with hungry eyes, calculating the money they could get for his belongings. The last thing Rod needs is a couple of castless men wanting to rob him. He's not as worried about the attack as much as he is being slowed down by it. He abruptly turns left near a hut. The men hasten after Rod. To their surprise, he's vanished from sight. He slips through the muddy town and continues to the valley of Midland. This is where the farmers reside, tending to livestock and crops for the entire city. 4 families make up the agriculture of the Steam City, with each producing specific foods. Rod cuts through the Rindekerl's cornfields. He probes Gabriel again on his location. "Looks like they're heading to the quarry," Gabriel answers.
"Makes sense," Elena replies. "They recently had to stop mining due to a gas leak. I believe the next course of action was to open another entrance in hopes of allowing the gas to evaporate quicker."
"Elena, meet us near the quarry's entrance," Rod directs.
"You got it. I'll be there in 15.
All 3 hunters move in the night to their destination. Rod converges on Gabriel's position first, and the two take the opportunity to rest. Rod indulges in a cigarette, while Gabriel retracts into meditation and reflection. The brand sears hot on his neck this night. Death is soon approaching, and it will take all of his fortitude to hold the curse at bay. Rod gives Gabriel a moment to collect himself before showing him the tin of balm. Gabriel unscrews the lid and gives a gentle whiff. "It smells sweet, like mashed berries floating on a cool afternoon breeze." "Very poetic. I think you need to change professions. You've missed your calling, my friend." Gabriel lets out a slight sigh. "I'm sure I've missed a lot of things." The conversation between the 2 hunters is interrupted by the swift tap of running feet in their direction. Gabriel faces the sound and plants his feet, anticipating a fight. Rod flicks his cigarette on the ground and prepares for a duel as well. The sound draws nearer. The men are at the ready when a familiar friend comes into view. Poppy. The little automaton salutes the hunters with a gracious beep and a half-hearted boop. Elena brings up the rear, panting as she comes into view. She is carrying a tan backpack with various death-dealing goodies for the men. She is clad in black attire, with her goggles snug securely on her brow.
"Holy shit! This stuff is heavy."
Poppy lets out a quick beep, followed by a robotic laugh.
"You didn't carry anything, you little tin bucket. Plus, you don't have any lungs, so shut up."
Quite exhausted from the trek, the young tinker slings the bag off her back and drops it to the ground. She pulls out an ammo belt and tosses it to Gabriel, along with a sawed-off shotgun.
"Here, take this. The left side of the belt stores non-lethal rounds, and the right, well, is lethal."
Gabriel takes the weapon and ammo belt, sliding the worn leather strap around his thick waist, and secures it. He pulls 2 slugs from the non-lethal compartment and surveys them. "Rubber bullets."
"You bet. I was able to cure them from the sap of some small saplings I bought in Nymph."
"You've been to Nymph?" Rod asks, as she hands him a couple of magazines.
"You bet,"
Elena answers with a half-hearted smile.
"It was shortly after moving here. Kendrick helped me get situated and talked Vinnick into holding on my cast, so I decided to take the train to Junction City."
"I haven't seen Junction in a very long time," Gabriel interjects. "Did you stop by the coconut shack?"
"Yeah, I did. You were right, the cured mutton was delicious. I ordered it again on my way back from Nymph,"
Elena says with a euphoric beam, remembering the meal. "I always loved the little sautéed mushrooms they served on the side." "Are you 2 finished?" Rod asks irritatingly. He pulls the pistol from its holster, ejecting the magazine and the round in the chamber. He slides the magazine with the rubber bullets in and slides one into the chamber. "It's obvious you never had them," Gabriel retorts.
"Yeah, 'cause you'd be dreaming about 'em too,"
Elena says, continuing Gabriel's thought. "You're probably right. I've never been that far east.
Really? Elena, in amazement.
There's enough here to keep me busy. In fact, I never rode the train. I was kind of hoping to with this trip. So, if you two don't mind, I'd like to get back to the task at hand.
Rod pulls the balm from his breast pocket and hands it to Elena. She looks at the colorless tin, dumbfounded, while unscrewing the lid. What's this?
This is the balm I recovered from Lorana. She was using it to seduce the men at the nightclub. She got it from Tanner.
The fragrance is quite pleasant, Gabriel says with a deep, soothing tone. Elena pulls the tin away from her face in disgust after a whiff of the substance. She spits several times in hopes of evacuating the rotting stench from her senses. Oh, God! It smells like vomit!
Really? The stuff gives off a very sweet aroma to Gabe and me.
It takes a moment for Elena to compose herself from the bile taste in her mouth. She spits several more times and screws the lid back on. Just then, a flash streaks across her face, and the youthful tinker's eyes widen. This is the final piece of the puzzle. She kneels back down to the backpack, placing the tin in the satchel, then retrieves a leather-bound binder. Wait, I think I got it. I saw this on top of the other binders and figured you were doing some research on the arachnids. Funny thing is, I never picked up on it until this very moment. Elena walks over to Rod, handing him the notes and pointing to a specific line. Gabriel moves in to sneak a peek as well.
The smaller receptors, what of it?
Rod looking back at Elena. She grins ear to ear before responding. It's their genitals. The receptors are picking up the pheromones from the succubus through these receptors.
So why use the balm? Gabriel injects.
Maybe the pheromone has a finite radius, and probably only effective once the men are turned. Possibly the balm is more potent. The she-bitch must be pretty deep in the quarry. She can use Lorana to seduce the men and bring them back.
Sounds logical enough, Gabriel says. So how did they manufacture the balm?
Rod and Elena pull down the same name from the universe and respond in unison. Sandman.
Who?
We'll explain later. Last question. How come Gabriel and I aren't affected? Well, the crazy psycho bitch is obviously a demon, right? Since Gabriel is cursed and you are, well, another kind of cursed, that might explain why neither of you is affected. I've never seen a human afflicted by 2 curses or a demonic possession at the same time. Only enough room in the body for 1 crazy at a time.
So how is the balm affecting Slade? Gabriel asks.
Elena thinks on the question before answering. The gauntlet on his left arm is lined with iron, keeping the demon... She pauses again, snapping her fingers in hopes of sparking the entity's name. Fritz, right? That's what he called it? If the iron is keeping Fritz at bay, which in turn could negate Fritz's astral energy, but leave Slade open to other adverse effects, I'm pretty sure the constant fight with the entity keeps his body pretty weak. I'm pulling most of this out of my ass. Elena laughs.
I can live with both answers. Let's go get Slade, Rod says, walking to the quarry entrance.
Hold up, cowboy. Elena hands both men a pair of night vision goggles. They slide the goggles on top of their heads as they enter the cave's dark womb. The 4 hunters move as quick as their feet can carry them, staying as quiet as possible. They hope to take the succubus by surprise, even though she likely anticipates their arrival. Tanner's last words were foreshadowing indeed. Elena takes point on their trip through the winding tunnels of the quarry. Since mining has halted, Mayor Vinnick ceased all power running to the quarry to conserve the finite resources they have. Coal is an important commodity to the city, and every day the men aren't in the mines, Midland uses more of its reserves. The city has been buzzing of late with talks of this new power source the Dark City is supposedly building, Elena says, ducking underneath the low ceiling. If there is indeed some sort of schism in the Alliance, Vinnick will no doubt side with Claudius."
"So what Rod said about Mother Gertrude could lead to war, then?" Gabriel asks.
"Maybe. If it happens, Midland will indeed side with Orgrimdir. Vinnick is too damn spineless. Plus, Trunnick keeps his skeletal fingers deep in Vinnick."
"Who is this Trunnick?" Rod inquires next.
"Trunnick Vabron. He's one vile son of a bitch. He owns most of, if not all, the farming land in Midland," Elena answers, turning back to the men. "I had the misfortune of doing some work in his home."
"Really? What happened?" Rod asks. Both men stop in their tracks. Elena catches the stern gaze of brotherly concern in both men's eyes. She gives a wide grin.
"Relax, I took care of it. You two taught me well. Besides, I think Kendrick found out and had some choice words for him. No telling what he said to the prick. Now, if you two don't mind, I think we need to keep quiet. Let's not give our position away."
"The student becomes the master," Gabriel says with a lowered voice. "So true," Rod answers. Elena snaps back at the men with a scolding look. Both men lower their heads for a moment until Elena turns back to the tunnel ahead. The quartet marches on through the darkness, escaping into their own minds. The only ambient noise is the occasional chirp of bats. The aura in this quarry is that of a vacuum, slowly sucking them deeper into its depths. The tunnel descends down for a bit, then runs into a fork. Elena halts, throwing a fist into the air. Rod, Gabriel, and Poppy stop. Since the events at the ruined city, the young hunter is beginning to listen more to her intuition. Following her grandfather's teachings, Elena stares at the fork. Her body instinctively nudges her toward the left tunnel. With very little reservation, Elena gravitates to the left path.
"Come on, this way,"
she motions to the group.
"Are you sure about this?"
Gabriel asks. Still taking up the rear, the hunter kneels down, checking a set of footprints that lead to the right.
"No, but I feel a dark aura pulling me this way, and my gut tells me to follow."
"Into a trap, most likely," Gabriel grumbles as he catches up to the group. His gut is telling him they're falling into the same trap as last time. "And if it is, we'll make do. We always do," Rod says. They continue through the tunnel. The humidity thickens the deeper they go. Their pace slows a bit. The rocks on the floor are quite slippery from the excess moisture. The goggles seem to be losing effectiveness against an unknown force that seems to be hiding every last drop of light. The only sound filling the hollow quarry is the drip of water sprinkled in between the tapping of the hunter's boots against the slick earth. The group makes it to a bend in the passageway leading left. As they round the bend, the familiar aroma lingers onward. The men smell the sweet berries from before as Elena is forced to inhale the putrid stench of bile and vomit. She almost loses her dinner before taking a white cloth from her backpack and wrapping it around her face. Reaching the end of the passage, the hunters are hit by a blinding light. Each one removes their night vision goggles before continuing to the ledge. Elena signals to the group to halt, then turns and whispers to Poppy.
"Have you picked anything up from your scans?"
The little robot does not respond. Instead, it sends a series of texts to Elena's armband. She reads the message, then looks over to Rod and Gabriel.
"Poppy hasn't picked up any trace amounts of toxic gas."
"Meaning?" Rod replying back with a louder whisper.
"The workers often brought sparrows with them the deeper they ventured into the quarry. They were used as an early warning for toxic fumes. The workers blasted their way into another chamber. Almost immediately, the sparrows keeled over. The men left, assuming they reached a pocket of gas. Strange, though, Poppy isn't picking up anything that would be deadly to the bird's respiratory system."
"So something else killed them?" Gabriel asks Elena.
"I guess the she-demon bitch tricked them into leaving so it could take up residence here," she replies. Elena inches over the edge and takes a look below. It is only a 20-foot drop with an accessible ledge about halfway down. She gestures to Poppy to go first. The robot salutes, then climbs down to the first rocky platform. He scans the perimeter, then hops to the next. Everything looks clear. Poppy sends a text to Elena that the coast is clear. They descend upon a mid-size, well-lit opening with 3 paths, one left, one right, and one straight ahead. The group takes several steps forward. Elena stares down each path, yet no feelings wash over her like before. It's almost as if an invisible barrier is masking the correct path. Rod walks over to Elena's left side. The aura here is strong, almost smothering my senses, giving this energy a heavy weight. Elena is somewhat startled by the remark, and also quite comforted by it. She isn't the only one feeling this demonic atmosphere. It reaffirms that maybe she isn't crazy, and making this whole universe aura mumbo-jumbo shit up in her head. She smiles up at Rod, giving him a little nudge in the ribs. Good, because I was beginning to think I was batshit crazy. He doesn't look at her, but instead keeps his wits fixed on the center path. Trusting his own instincts, he tries to push his thoughts through the imperceptible wall. The center and right paths are weaker than the left. That could mean that the Hive Mother is in that direction. Elena keeps her gaze on Rod, waiting for a clue from her mentor. An infinite second passes when Rod looks back at the young leader with a smile. The barrier is much stronger to the left. My guess is she's projecting it to keep us confused and lost. I say we go left. Why are we standing around wasting time? Let's go. Gabriel charges into the left tunnel. He walks to the opening like a lineman protecting his quarterback. All thought is on his brother, which hastens his step as the feeling of uncertainty whirls rapidly through his mind. Gabriel needs to keep the adrenaline low, or he will put the whole group in jeopardy. The mercenary spent many years trying to keep his curse in check. If he doesn't dull his emotions, the dark beast of wrath will escape and send him into a berserk rage. When anger takes hold, Gabriel loses all reason and lusts only for blood and death. The only thing that sends the emotion into overdrive is harm to his brother. The mere thought of the succubus harming Slade calls to the beast buried deep in his psyche. It longs to be free. Elena senses the agitated air around him. She feels the beast stirring from its slumber. Gabriel's back starts to arch, like a man undergoing the change to a wild animal. She places a hand on Gabriel's mid-back and lightly rubs. She whispers softly to him, "It's going to be okay, Gaby. We will find Slade. Rod and I need you sane. Put the beast back to sleep. It is no good here." As she speaks the words with compassion, Gabriel's boiling adrenaline slowly subsides. She can feel the muscles in his back loosen. He turns to his surrogate niece and gives a little nod, and his pace slows a little for Rod and Poppy to catch up. The damp tunnel twists some more before coming to another lit opening. However, it dead ends. A stack of wooden barrels and crates sits against the wall ahead of them. The group examines the contents of one of the barrels and finds explosive powder. It looks as though they were in the process of demolishing this wall to mine deeper. As the hunters turn back, Poppy spots a splinter of light behind several large pieces of scrap metal braced against the cavern wall, and beeps to his human comrades. Rod hears the electronic squeal first and walks over to Poppy. He kneels down as he sees the shimmering blade of light. The aroma of wild berries is quite potent near the fractured rock. He calls Gabriel over to help with the heap of metal. Once unearthed, the group is met by a high crack with just enough width for them to squeeze through. Rod can see quite a bit of light illuminating in the next room. Poppy takes point and slips through the hardened earth. The other three wait for an update. It doesn't take long for the automaton to message Elena. She looks down and reads the message aloud. "Coast looks clear. You need to see this." Rod squeezes through the crack, and Elena follows close behind, with Gabriel bringing up the rear. The hunters take their time slithering through the break. Again, with each slide closer to the exit, the smell thickens the air. For Elena, it curdles her stomach to the point she almost vomits. Not even the cloth can filter the rancid fragrance. Rod wiggles his left arm to a small compartment on his belt. He takes out a small plastic box and hands it to the young hunter. "If you can, put a little bit of this under your nose. It'll help." She grabs the tiny box and pops the top off. She places a thin strip under each nostril, inhaling slowly. The minty odor overpowers all other scents. Her lungs open up and burn somewhat from the menthol in the balm. Elena tries to fight a cough back, but it feels as though ice is filling up in her lungs. She fights a little more, until the icy sensation overtakes her chest, letting out a fiery series of hard coughs. "Holy shit! My sinuses are clear!" she exclaims, wincing from the pain. "Damn, I think my nose is gonna bleed." She pops the lid back on and hands it back to Rod. The trio continues the methodical push to the floodlit exit. Rod can't help but feel a sense of foreboding as he looks at the jagged exit. It's no more than 5 yards from him. It lingers before them like serrated teeth about to chomp down. With deepening dread, Rod struggles closer to the belly of the beast. It takes a moment for his eyes to adjust to the light as the hunter emerges from the fracture. The light is dim but bright enough that the hunters pause momentarily. Their eyes soon adjust. Each one gasps from the sight of the area. Its size and scope are breathtaking. The hunters stand on a cliff roughly 20 or 30 yards from off the ground. Before them is a sight no human's seen in a very long time, as though a chunk of human history was ripped from the past and laid before them. A neighborhood with withered homes sits just below the hunters. The derelict road that connects the homes veers ahead of them some 300 yards before vanishing into the abyss of the cavern. Gabriel spots another cluster of ramshackle buildings protruding out from the cavern walls. Some pieces of an old interstate sit quietly off in the distance, looming above all else, peering out of the shadows, as if watching the town in silent contempt. "What the shit is this?" Elena says in pure amazement. "Looks like a section of the ancient world was swallowed whole and placed down here for safekeeping," Gabriel replies. A row of old brick homes lays to the right in a line as century-old stalagmites pierce sporadically through the roofs. A car sits in the withered, crumbly driveway of each house, the tires long since decomposed. Only the rusted carcass remains. Where grass once grew in the front yards, now only scattered deposits of fungi and moss live. The left side is a mirror image of the right, brick houses lined with each other in varying stages of decay and rust. Rod's eyes follow the street until it vanishes into the abyss of the unknown. He surveys the surroundings in hopes of finding an easy way to the ground floor. He spots a cliff several feet below them that spirals down to the encased valley. "We can climb down from that ledge over there." They all agree and make their way to the lower ledge one by one. 10 minutes or so pass before the hunters plant their mud-covered boots on the cavern floor. Elena and Poppy take the lead, with Rod and Gabriel walking side by side. The hunters stay on edge the rest of the trek through the derelict cul-de-sac, hands hovering close to their weapons. A calm silence resonates throughout the cavern. They reach the last house and venture through the backyard, then travel up a collection of smooth boulders. "Where is the light coming from?" Gabriel says as they climb the series of boulders. Rod has been thinking the same thing since they arrived in the area. The ceiling vanishes into blackness above them.
It's as though a mysterious entity is shining a spotlight on the ancient neighborhood and nowhere else. Almost as if someone or something is guiding them. Rod and his companions finally arrive at the Hive Mother's front door. A large number of stalactites descend from the shaded ceiling and converge together, creating a mineral deposit barrier. Gabriel detects another light source to their right. Gabriel and Rod enter the opening first, with Elena and Poppy close behind. A radial spotlight shines in the middle of the round room. The light is warm to the skin as they enter the yellowish circle. It dances to and fro, like the light from a torch, but at a slower pace. It moves with weight. Small little fragments of grain can be seen by the naked eye. Elena slides her goggles over her spectacles and turns a small dial on the right side. The lens magnifies, giving the tinker a closer examination of the specks of illuminating particles. She moves her hand through the elements in awe as the light sways like water in a stream.
"They're little bugs," Elena says, peering at a cluster of the dust mites. Her playful investigation comes to a halt as a cold voice echoes through the room. The voice is female, yet the pitch flows from high to low in an eerie rhythm. It sounds as though two distinct voices are speaking in unison. The hunters know the voice all too well. The unnatural voice haunts their dreams from time to time. Just when the recollection of the tone is about to leap from their mind and dive into the abyss of forgetfulness, they dream of it and of her. "I'm so glad you all can come to this homecoming. I thought about this day for a long time, as have you, no doubt. The second your friend connected to my mind, I knew you all would come looking for him."
"Where is Slade?" Rod questions, moving his hands closer to his pistols.
"Don't worry, he's safe. I wanted you all here for the joining. But first, let's play a little game, shall we? Let's get the juices flowing. There's nothing more satisfying than dining on flesh coursing with adrenaline. It's very delectable."
The demon's wicked voice reverberates through the room, causing the dust mites to explode in rapid succession. The ripple effect of their death creates a sea of flame for a brief instant before flashing to darkness. A deafening silence fills the void of light. The hunters move closer together and scan the darkness. Elena looks up in time as ocean blue spheres pop out from the ceiling. "Arachnids above us!" Elena shouts. "What's the plan, boss?" Rod asks. "Poppy, ready the sun flare." The hunters feel Poppy run to the center of the group as Elena continues her rapid fire of orders. "The sun flare takes time to charge, so we need to play defense and protect Poppy. Better change to lethal rounds." "Gabe, you can use my sword." The massive hunter replies with an arrogant laugh. "Keep your toothpick. I'll manage." The blue eyes descend from the ceiling in pairs all around the team. Rod pulls Damon Malum from its holster as Elena tosses her backpack on the ground, removing her compact assault rifle. "Let's dance," Rod calls out as Elena fires a barrage of bullets around the room. The rifle gives enough light for Rod and Gabriel to see the onslaught of arachnids moving frantically to them. Gabriel snatches a darting leg, ripping it from the arachnid's body, then swinging it like a baseball bat. Rod fires off 2 incendiary rounds. More light splashes into the darkness as the slugs impact the creatures. Flashing scenes of death and carnage paint across the black canvas. The action plays out like stop motion as the hunters lay waste to the demonic humanoid insects. Gabriel sees an arachnid leaping at Poppy through the splatter of light. The behemoth man takes his spider leg and heaves it at the demon like a javelin. The organic spear pierces the arachnid in the mouth, sending it flying back into the emptiness that birthed it. A raspy squeal belches out as the arachnid crashes into another demon, with the javelin piercing its humanoid torso.
Poppy lets out a siren over the noise of chaotic screams and gunfire, warning the hunters that the sun flare is ready. Elena yells out to Rod and Gabriel, "Close your eyes!" The hunters kneel and mask their face as a tiny missile fires out of Poppy's mouth. The rocket goes skyward about 12 or so feet. The little engine stutters to a halt, then begins to descend. It suddenly explodes into a massive ball of light, brighter than the brightest day on Earth. The remaining demons scream and cry in dazzling pain. Even blocking their eyes, the hunters are temporarily blinded. Elena's eyes adjust first, due to sliding her goggles over her eyes before the explosion. The center mass of the blast hovers above them like a small sun, devouring the surrounding oxygen as fuel while giving adequate light for the group. Elena unleashes another hail of bullets at the stunned demons. Several hit their mark, giving way to more arachnids collapsing to the ground. Poppy darts to his master's back and unleashes a stream of molten fire on 2 spider demons, engulfing them in a purifying blaze. As Gabriel struggles to get his footing, he scours the battlefield for any encroaching creatures. One stray arachnid emerges from the shadows, making a beeline for Elena and Poppy. He leaps at the demon and clings to its back, jarring the demonic bug off its course. Gabriel braces himself on the demon with his thighs and moves his hands around its neck. Effortlessly, Gabriel rips the pale head off the creature and tosses it at the last arachnid creeping up on Rod. The fleshy head hits the back of the humanoid section of the demon. It squeals in slight annoyance, signaling the creature's location to Rod. Blindly, the hunter turns and jumps back. He points Damon Malum in the direction of the noise and fires off a round. The demon shrieks one last time as it falls to the blood-stained floor. All arachnids have been defeated as the hunters converge on one another, gazing at the carnage they have created. Rod and Gabriel give a hearty fist bump as Elena gives out a healthy laugh while reloading her assault rifle. "Ha! Their future was so bright they forgot to wear shades." "Really?" Rod remarks on the comment. "That's stupid." "What? That's comedic gold right there." "Better than, 'Let's dance,'" the young tinker retorts, miming quotation marks following an awful impression of Rod. "It is a legitimate battle cry. It sets the mood while increasing adrenaline and instills fear into your enemy." "Do you really believe the crap that just flowed out of your mouth?" Elena scoffs. Gabriel interjects the squabble between the two. Ladies, you're both beautiful. Could we please get back to the task at hand?" "Fine," Elena says, walking past Rod. "Butthead." "Nerd." Without warning, a massive black object lashes out at Elena. Rod pulls her back. "Fuck!" howls the female hunter, stumbling back several feet. The room rumbles as another series of dark objects attack at the hunters. Rod and Gabriel move closer to Elena, holding a defensive position. Ahead of them is a woman, naked, emerging from the darkness. The dark objects were her 8 massive spider legs. They're attached to her back. Her long, silken black hair is covering her breasts. The demonic blood in her veins can be seen through her pale skin. Elena points up. Rod and Gabriel look as Slade descends from the ceiling. The succubus walks behind Slade, smiling at the quartet. Gabriel's brother is frozen with an expressionless face. His dirty blonde hair is tied in a messy ponytail with the sides shaved bald. His eyes are a cloudy gray from the demonic pheromones of the succubus. The dark temptress places her left hand on his shoulder and winks at the group. "You improved since the last we've met. I'm a bit saddened, but wildly turned on. My children's death was not in vain from that display. Don't worry, though. There are plenty more waiting for you. I've promised them all delicious flesh. Unfortunately, there isn't enough to go around. Only the strongest will survive." "You are one sick piece of work, lady," Elena says, looking down her barrel. "I'm going to enjoy ripping out her black heart." "Oh, you'll get your chance. You'll fail miserably, just like last time. But first, you're going to watch as I bathe Slade in lust, converting him into one of my divine children."
The succubus chuckles devilishly as she moves her lips close to Slade's cheek and gives him a gentle kiss, followed by a lick from her long, snake-like tongue. Two uncontaminated men come from behind the succubus and begin to undress Slade. They start by removing his vest, then shirt. More arachnids descend from the shadowy ceiling. The sight of Slade in this state starts to eat away at Gabriel. The dark beast within his psyche starts to manifest. His veins begin to engorge, pumping his body with the cursed adrenaline as his eyes pool into crimson. Elena whistles softly to Rod. He turns slightly to the young hunter.
"Swing high,"
she whispers while eyeing the still-burning sun flare. Rod nods and waits for the opportunity. The succubus is too enamored with Slade to notice Gabriel's transformation into the berserk. She gazes into Slade's blank eyes while speaking to the hunters.
"I do hope he's as delicious as the other from your group. My, he had some fight in him. What did you call him?"
the succubus says. Her dark eyes jut over to Elena's. She grins perversely.
"Gramps was his name, wasn't it?"
Rod and Elena look on in surprise, thinking he was dead from the cave-in. The demon's eyes widen in horrid delight.
"Oh my, you thought he was dead when you left him, retreating like scolded babies. Oh no, he was very much alive. I took my time with him, slowly sucking the soul from his body like marrow from the bone. His essence was sweeter than anything I've ever tasted."
The succubus words were the final straw for Gabriel. He succumbs to the curse of rage that was branded on him so many years ago, giving him unmatched strength and stamina, but taking his conscious mind in return. He howls like a madman and sprints to his brother. The arachnids block Gabriel's path. It isn't so much a barrier as it is a speed bump, as the berserker rips through the spider demons like they're made from paper. Gabriel rips legs from one creature and plunges them into another. He takes hold of two of the front legs and twirls the demon around like a shot put, knocking others back in the process. "Do it now," Elena says to Rod. He takes his sword and rears it back like a baseball bat and knocks it against the tiny floating sun. He follows Elena's instructions and smashes the sun flare up above the succubus. The force causes the fireball to exhaust the rest of its gas, creating one last vibrant flash. He takes off towards Slade, reloading the magazine with the rubber bullets. Another arachnid drops from the above black void, landing in Rod's path. The hunter drops to his knees and skids across the blood-soaked floor. As he slides under the spider, Rod pulls his hand cannon and fires his last incendiary round into the creature's mouth. The demon explodes as the hunter exits from underneath. He continues his pursuit of Slade. The blast from the sun flare blinds the succubus and her demonic children. Elena fires off 2 rubber bullets, hitting each uncontaminated man. Elena misses the far left human puppet. The man's eyes grow bright blue as he charges Elena. Rod fires his pistol. The rubber bullets do nothing but slow him down enough for Elena to pull a knife from her belt, jamming into the side of his face. Rod grabs Slade, throwing the catatonic hunter's arm over his shoulder. He starts to walk Slade back to Elena when Rod stops dead in his tracks. Something has a hold of his leg. He turns back to see the other man lying on the ground, gripping Rod tightly. "Damn it!" Rod shouts as he empties the remaining rubber bullets into the man's skull. He loosens his grip on the hunter. Rod then hurries to Elena. With Slade in tow, Rod, Elena, and Poppy race to the exit, while Gabriel, still entranced in his dark rage, finishes off the remaining arachnids. The succubus shakes the dazzling light from her eyes as the sun flare burns out. The demonic temptress rushes to Rod and Elena, but is intercepted by Gabriel.
He's wielding an arachnid leg in each hand, swinging them in flurries at the demon queen. Her massive appendages deflect the majority of the barrage, except for the final blow. The force from the impact knocks the succubus off her feet. Gabriel leaps into the air with the spider javelins overhead in an attempt to plunge them into the demon while she lays helpless on the ground. Rod and Elena slide their goggles on, switching to night vision, and look on as the green monochrome fight continues. Before the berserker can impale the demon, one of her legs connects with Gabriel and knocks him to the ground. His rage does not allow him to stumble as he jumps back to his feet. He grips the demonic appendage with both hands and charges at the succubus again with an overhead strike, but she is able to deflect the attack. She floats above the ground as she uses 4 of her spider appendages to charge Gabriel. The other 4 she sends out in a flurry against Gabriel. "Come on, let's get Slade out of here," Rod says, motioning for Elena and Poppy to go through the entrance. "What about Gabriel? He can use our help." "He can handle himself. Plus, he's in no mind to accept our help. You know he can't discern friend from foe in this state. Come on, we have to hurry," Rod urges Elena. The young tinker lets out a reluctant sigh before following. The slugfest between Gabriel and the succubus rages on for a bit longer, each foe dealing blow after blow to one another. The succubus blocks an exhaustive series of attacks before going back on the offensive. The berserker is able to dodge the first wave, but is surprised by an unexpected 5th leg swooping in from the side. The attack sends Gabriel flying through the opposite wall and out into the ancient neighborhood. He gave Rod and Elena an ample amount of time to carry Slade out of the stalactite room and down the boulders. The cavern floor shakes as the succubus strikes the wall repeatedly. Chunks of the ceiling fall to the ground from the shock of each strike as she attempts to make a path to pursue the hunters. The hunters hurry to their fallen comrade. Elena rushes to Gabriel's side and shakes him. She takes the last resort, slapping him across the face several times. The strikes rouse Gabriel back to life. The succubus was able to knock the rage out of him. He looks up at Elena with kind eyes. "I feel like I got ran over by a train." "Close enough. Come on, we have Slade, let's go," Elena orders. Gabriel stands up, then hoists Slade onto his shoulders. "What about the others?" Gabriel asks. "They're too far gone. Come on, we have to hurry," Rod answers. The 4 hunters continue through the neighborhood time forgot on their way back to the exit on the cliff. As the group reaches the base of the cliff, the sound of exploding earth echoes from behind them as the succubus bursts through the wall. She lets out a demonic screech, a signal to her remaining children. The sound of thousands of marching feet resonates throughout the cavern. Gabriel lays his brother against the rocks as they prepare for the last bout against the oncoming flood of arachnids. The spider demons pour out from every hole and crevice, converging on the hunters. The hive mother callously struts to the group, letting out a repugnant giggle of delight. "Did you really think I would let you escape so easily? Please, my darlings, I've been dreaming about this for far too long, as I'm sure you all have as well. Fortunately, I have the numbers." The succubus lets out another laugh as her spider children move in closer, waiting to follow their hive mother's command. "I have a plan for each of you. The men I shall gift them my taint through vigorous pleasure. The big one I will use repeatedly. Your transformation into my children will be slow and sweet. Your memories will become mine, and I will devour your essence to its very last drop, and feed your carcass to my pets. But you," pointing at Rod, "you I will bring into my fold. You will be my general, and you'll lead my children above ground to feast on your city. Oh, the death will last for weeks. I can hear their screams now." The succubus lets out an orgasmic moan at the thought of all those souls being ripped apart and devoured. She takes a deep breath, soaking in every last bit of the mayhem before continuing. "The girl, well, I let her live for a while. She will have the privilege to look on as we travel from town to town and kill every last human. Night after night, she will watch men, women, and children be devoured. No one will be spared. I, along with my beautiful children, will rid the world of human stench. Your greed, your vanity, and your betrayal will finally be eradicated."
The arachnids inch closer to the hunters. They stand, swaying back and forth, eagerly anticipating their mother's command. Each arachnid is in some varying degree of the metamorphosis. One unlucky man has one usable leg, while the other is split apart, with 3 arachnid legs taking its place. Low on stamina, and even lower on ammunition, the odds are not in their favor. Elena removes her backpack and pulls out some grenades. She tosses one to Gabriel and Rod. "If things take a drastic turn, pull the pin and hold on. We won't feel a thing when it goes off, and we'll take every last one of these ugly sons of bitches with us." The men nod and ready themselves for the impending onslaught. The succubus squeals out her vile command, and the arachnids move in. Like a divine symbol of retribution, a massive sword descends from above, impaling the closest arachnid. Explosions erupt from the outside perimeter of the demons. The sword is none other than Gabriel's massive claymore. Gabriel goes for his sword, ripping it from the corpse. Rod looks up to the cliff and sees Kendrick give a slight wave. The ebony-skinned commander yells down to his friends, "You didn't think I'd miss out on this reunion, did you?" "I was beginning to wonder, actually," Rod yells back. "What the hell took you so long?" Elena shouts. "You didn't tell me exactly where you'd be in the quarry. Just come to the quarry. Luckily, we tailed a group of men heading here." Kendrick signals to his blade arms. Several of his soldiers leap from the ledge and rapidly rappel down to Rod and company. Another series of soldiers fire more grenades on the outlying perimeter of demons. Gabriel wastes no time in losing himself to the thrill of blood and death, swinging wildly at the spider creatures. Rod draws his sword and rushes to make his own mark on the demonic flood. Elena and Poppy take up defensive positions, protecting Slade. A second and third wave of blade arms rappel to the ground, with Kendrick leading the last wave. The soldiers break out into isolated formations, creating several schisms in the arachnid flood. Screams of death from human and demon alike cloud the air throughout the cavern. The succubus deals out her fair share of death as she lays waste to numerous battalions. As the fighting ensues, Elena, with help from some blade arms, is able to take Slade and any wounded to the top ledge. A small battalion of assault rifle-wielding soldiers spray cover fire into the sea of anthropomorphic demons, pushing them back from their comrades on the ground. Poppy unleashes his trusty flamethrower against the demonic horde, popping spider creatures in a grotesque series of dominoes. Covered in tar-like blood and exhausted, the hunters make one final push to the Hive Queen with the help of Kendrick's soldiers. Unexpectedly, a group of rogue arachnids attacks the winding path up the wall. A small battalion of blade arms meets the demons head-on. They aren't enough, however, to fend off the tide. The last standing soldier pulls the pin from his grenade and tosses. He's impaled by one of the arachnids in mid-toss. The grenade flies back, exploding a section of the cliff Kendrick and the blade arms entered. Massive pieces of limestone debris crash down. Kendrick hears the eruption and looks up as the rock comes speeding toward him. He pushes the 2 closest soldiers out of the way as the rubble crashes onto a group of blade arms and arachnids. The commander surveys the battlefield. They've eliminated many demons, but there are still more advancing. It's becoming a hopeless fight, and they must retreat. Kendrick calls out to Rod, who is leading the charge to the succubus. "We have to pull back. The cavern is starting to collapse in on itself." "We can finish this now. Just one final push," Rod retorts. "No, it's suicide. I'm not risking any more of my men. Let's regroup. She won't be able to escape." "Fine," Rod reluctantly agrees and orders his battalion to fall back to the precipice.
Elena and the remaining cliffside blade arms give suppressing fire for the ground troops to retreat safely. The young tinker sets a small charge in the schism and detonates it. Debris bursts forward, crashing into a cluster of intruding arachnids. All manner of organs and limbs explode in all directions. Elena shields herself behind a rock from the onslaught of entrails. "God, the smell is just awful," Elena says, peering over the rock. The explosion created an adequate hole for the soldiers to make their escape. Gabriel, Rod, and Kendrick hold the perimeter to allow the blade arms to retreat up the cliff. With each passing moment, more and more of the ceiling starts to collapse around them. In some instances, it helps the trio by squashing arachnids. However, many soldiers become messy casualties from the avalanche as well. Squashed arms and legs protrude out of the rubble, squirming for life for the last time. As the last battalion ascends to the top, Rod throws Elena's gift out into the last horde of demons. As the grenade detonates, the hunter points his left arm into the air and fires his grappling hook. Gabriel and Kendrick make it to the ledge and head through the newly formed exit. The succubus is defeated, but she will have one moment of victory. The Hive Mother races over the orgy of rocks and charred flesh, both human and demon. The spider legs allow the succubus to stride quickly across the battlefield. She zones in on Rod as he zips up to the cliff. At that last moment, her bottom four legs spring the succubus skyward. One of the upper legs swipes, severing the line from Rod's grappling hook. He plummets to the Hive Mother. Elena looks on in horror and runs to the ledge in an attempt to swan dive after him, but is scooped up by Gabriel. He pulls her back into the passageway as a boulder decimates the ledge and caving them in the tunnel. Rod nosedives toward the succubus. He rams into the succubus' chest, pushing her back to the rocky, carcass-littered ground. Her demon legs absorb most of the impact as Rod bounces off of her when they hit the ground. Both Rod and the succubus are slow to their feet, taking a moment to get their bearings. As the world slowly stops turning, Rod locks his gaze at the succubus, who is still fighting her dizziness. She shakes the last bit and scans the area for Rod. Their eyes lock, and the succubus smiles wickedly at the hunter while licking her lips. The thought of turning Rod fuels her with energy. Her legs lift her high into the air as she scurries to him. Rod unsheaths his blade, extending it to full length. He readies himself. The succubus attacks with an overhead swing with two legs. Rod dodges forward, slicing one of the bottom appendages. Dark, tar-colored blood sprays from the wound. The succubus howls in lustful pain. He wastes little time and severs another. She falls to the ground, but hastily gets to her feet, now sending her four upper legs at Rod. He deflects each attack. She uses one of the four legs to scoop up debris, flinging it in Rod's direction. He rolls to the side, creating an opening to sever another limb. His blade finds his mark, cutting the appendage in two. The demonic queen screams. Her almost orgasmic moans and screams from earlier are gone, replaced by a loathing growl. It's no longer a fun little game for the succubus. With each severed limb, Rod has made this personal. For the hunter, however, it's been personal for 2 years. The remaining spider legs move uncontrollably, knocking against the side of the winding path. More loose rocks fall from above, crashing down on the two. When the chaos subsides and the dust settles, Rod climbs his way out of the rubble and fights to his feet. Gripping his sword, he scans the vicinity for the succubus. He hears rubble move behind him and turns with his blade at the ready. The succubus claws her way out of the wreckage, panting and covered in dust. She wipes her dark hair from her face and sneers at Rod. "I will drain every last drop of blood from your body. Your essence will mend my broken body. It wasn't just your friend I survived off of either. It was many humans. You're a simple species, easily manipulated. Sheep for my kind. You all have no place in this world. It may take 1,000 years, but I will devour every last human. Take comfort that you will suffer the same fate as your friend."
The image of Gramps sends Rod's blood to a boil. The thought of his dear friend subject to such torture, slowly being drained of his soul until death. He stammers for a moment, almost losing his grip of the sword. Fatigue is setting in. He won't be able to last much longer, and the succubus shows no sign of slowing down, even after losing some limbs. That sensation starts to crawl up his spine once more. The cool voice whispers into his mind,
"I can finish this, Rod. I can deal with this demon. You just need to let go."
"You're back?" Rod mutters, concentrating with all of his might to stand. He looks at his sword to make sure it is there. The hunter can no longer feel his grip. "I thought I was rid of you. You're nothing more than figments."
"No, Rod, I am not. You fight to rid me from your body, but I will always be here. We are thick as thieves, you and I won't leave until my job is done."
"And that is?"
"I already told you. Vengeance. You and I will bathe in these demons' blood. They're the reason for the world you live in. They are the cause of this reality, and it is our destiny to finally rid ourselves of this filth."
The succubus has fought her way out of the rubble, clawing her way back to Rod while the Dark One takes control. His eyes cloud milky white as she lashes out with a usable appendage. Rod looks at her with a maddening smile, abruptly stopping her strike. A new aura surrounds the hunter, and it startles the Hive Mother. Something dark and ancient, an energy that is far greater than her, emerges from the hunter's psyche. The Dark One smiles at the succubus. "Well, well, we meet again, Drusilla. This time, however, it is on a more personal level. One-on-one this time. Just you and me, with no one getting in the way."
"What is this duality I sense? This ancient energy that clouds your soul? I've only spoken my name to one human, and it's not you. How do you know that name?"
Rod lets out a callous laugh as he walks closer to the dark seductress. "I know practically everything about you, Drusilla. One of the first fallen, the love of Michael and the temptress of Lucifer, the whore of heaven. You know, I can go on all day with the old titles." The words resonate inside the dark, corroded heart of Drusilla, drumming up primordial memories that she long ago ripped from her soul. Those old feelings of love, loss, and betrayal come flooding back. All these feelings she molded into a singular emotion: hate. Hate for all men, no matter the species. Their greedy and narcissistic souls, using whomever they want to get whatever they desire. Not again. Never again. Drusilla cries out to the Dark One.
"Stop it! You know none of this. You were not there. That's not how it happened."
"Whatever do you mean, Drusilla?" "Oh, you mean the lustful wedge you created between Michael and Lucifer. Your friends and brothers in arms you seduced. Now, Drusilla, you can't play innocent with me."
"No, that's not what happened. The Morning Star tricked us all."
A tidal wave of emotions and memories come crashing over Drusilla. The memories of love and loss, fear and betrayal. The last memory of heaven comes crashing back.
The look in Michael's eyes as he ripped the wings from her body, casting her out of paradise for treason. "But it was all a lie," Drusilla cries out. "We were all deceived. Even Metatron did not foresee these events. How could I? No, it is his fault. He will forever be the great deceiver." Angered by his words and furious that she had to relive those memories, Drusilla lashes out with her spider legs. Rod dodges each flurry with uncanny accuracy. "You must be a little tired, or perhaps out of shape. I can't see how, though. I mean, look at you. You're what, several million years old, and still have the breasts of a 20-year-old. Her wrath boils over. She attacks Rod again. Just like the last time, he escapes each strike, smugly laughing at the succubus. He's toying with her, and she knows, only fueling her hatred further. She attacks again, and again Rod escapes effortlessly. Drusilla stammers for a moment. For the first time in recent memory has anyone exhausted her, but her mind is still recovering from the horrid memories. Rod curls his arms with a look of satisfaction. But time is relative to each of us and the spectral plane we reside in. Still, though, your body is indeed fine. I'd tear me off a piece of that, but damn." He pauses and looks around the mounds of arachnid corpses. "The STDs you're carrying are some nasty shit. I'm perfectly happy with having only 2 legs. Drusilla finally comes to terms with it. She's been bested. This is an enemy she must make a deal with if she is to survive. The succubus snarls at Rod. "What do you want?" "Oh, that's an easy one, my dear." He moves in close to Drusilla, still smiling. He lunges at the succubus with lightning speed, completely catching her off guard. His right hand dives into her chest. His cocky smile turns to a dark sneer. "Just your soul." Drusilla gasps as Rod rips her tar-smothered heart from her chest. He squeezes the organ, turning it to black mush. The demonic sludge crawls down his arm. The possessed hunter opens his hand. Drusilla looks on in agonizing horror at the black pool. The liquid soaks into Rod's skin. As it happens, the hive mother's body starts to crack and form into gray ash. And for the first time since she was banished from heaven by her lover Michael, a single tear runs down her cheek. The ashen texture travels up her pale skin, past her navel, then past her chest. As it inches closer to her neck, Rod grasps the demon's hair on the top of her head. I need a memento. With one swipe, Drusilla's head leaves her ash-covered body, escaping its withering fate. Rod stares into the lifeless eyes, then back to the ashen statue. Damn, sure was a waste of a perfectly good pair of tits. He smirks and blows at the demon's pallid body. The slight breeze causes the ashes to break apart and glide to the earth. Rod clenches his prize with heartless amusement. He looks for something to place the head in. He's in luck and spots Elena's backpack that she left behind. He places the pale-faced reward into the pack, then slings it over his shoulder. He looks up the rocky wall to find an easy ledge. He jumps up, secures his footing, and hikes skyward. With each step, the Dark One releases its cold grasp on Rod's mind. When he reaches the top, the hunter opens the bag to see Drusilla's lifeless expression. It's done, Rod surmises. The fucker actually did it. With each possession from the Dark One, Rod can feel pieces of his memories vanish. He has very little recollection when the Dark One is in control, only hazy snapshots. Rod must look to his surroundings to piece the events together. He can always ask, but the hunter doubts he'd get an honest answer. The Dark One is on a personal quest that Rod is not privy to, so the hunter often turns inward with his thoughts, sinking into a space deep and dark, a place the Dark One cannot enter. What vengeance is he referring to? And why did he wait until now to deal a killing blow to the succubus? Where was he 2 years ago? I can feel myself slipping, as if I'm losing control of my own body. I don't see myself anymore. He's toying with me, I know it. I never had control. An inner rumble begins to build in his mind. The Dark One emerges again. What are you waiting for? Let's get out of this shithole. It stinks worse than death.